The Dell Ultrasharp U3219q is a 32-inch IPS monitor that Dell is selling for over $1,500 Australian. Notable features are it's a 4K HDR display panel and the panel type is IPS, plus a whole host of other accompanying features that we will look at in this video. However, at the same time, we will also discuss things that are less than perfect with this monitor. So let's get into it. Let's start with the unboxing. The monitor comes in a printed box like this. I received mine with a bit of a damage on the box, possibly may have happened during transit, but there is enough protection inside and there was no damage to the monitor, thankfully. The first thing that we get out of the box is a factory calibration report. The packaging they used is recycled cardboard, which works as good as styrofoam, except it is the greener option. Below this layer of packaging there is the monitor. We don't take out the monitor just yet. First, let's assemble the stand. This is done rather simply by placing the vertical bar on the base and turning the screw clockwise, locking the vertical bar in place. That's the stand assembled. Nice and easy. Next, we bring the stand and lock it in place with a satisfying snap. And then we can lift out the monitor like that easily. Now let's look at some physical features. The stand has a round hole in it for cable to pass through. Also, one thing that I really like is the flat rectangular base. Not much to look at, but it gives back some of the desk space just by being flat. The monitor itself has a USB 3 hub built into it. There are two USB ports on the left of the monitor and at the bottom there are two more. While we are looking at the bottom, there is also the input for USB hub, then audio out, USB-C port for display input, a display port and HDMI port. And on the far end there is the standard power input socket. That I like, as I would like not to worry about another power adapter floating around. We have enough of those. Towards the bottom right of the monitor, there are buttons for the menu operations. We will talk about these a bit more shortly. The stand is comprehensive in its motion. It height adjusts with good travel distance too, with the max height reaching 62 centimeters from the desk surface to the top of the monitor. The monitor pivots and tilts and then rotates as well to portrait mode. The slightly uncommon thing here is that it rotates to either direction, so it helps if you are placing the monitor to the right or left of another monitor. Full marks for the included stand. The monitor also supports standard Visa mount, something that I have used for a few days as featured in the monitor arm video. With regards to bezel, there isn't a protruding frame surrounding the screen. Rather, at the edge panel ends flush to the outer body of the monitor. This is the standard look these days. There is, however, a black frame at the edge of the screen, and this fact is clearly shown in the Dell website. The USB hub that is in the monitor is not particularly fast, being USB 3. Copying large video files hits a max of about 40 Mbps. Whereas connecting directly to the computer, I get speeds of over 70. One more thing to mention is that plugging the monitor to a USB-C port does not necessarily make it work. The USB-C port needed on the computer or the laptop has to be DisplayPort over USB Type-C capable, which the newer devices are beginning to have. But just so you know, any and every USB port will not work. The monitor does not have any built-in speakers. It will, however, allow for audio connectivity to a headphone or a set of desktop speakers of some kind. We normally don't use monitor speakers in general, but having one on board makes it a little bit more versatile, just in case if we need to use one under some circumstance. Before I talk about the display properties, I'd like to mention that I have a second channel called Property Technical. Perhaps you'd like to see before and after of a renovation project, or technical things in relation to knocking down an old rundown house and building something new on top and making money in the process. All this and much more in the other channel, Property Technical. Now let's talk about the display properties. First, let's talk about the resolution, or rather in relation to its size. It seems to me that 4K in this 32-inch is a sweet spot. I have been using the monitor without any scaling and have no problems reading texts on the screen even when I'm leaning back on my chair. Next is the viewing angle. By the virtue of this monitor being an IPS panel, it has a decent viewing angle as far as monitors go in general. At the sharper angles, there is a bit of consistency fall off at both gray or flat colors. In general though, if there are people looking at monitor from various angles, as is the case often in offices, those additional viewers will not be disappointed. And this applies to having the monitor in portrait orientation as well. That being said, I'm not super impressed. The AOC monitor next to it seems to outperform the Dell in this regard. And my thoughts are that other panel types are beginning to match or exceed the performance in terms of viewing angle, so I was expecting a bit better than this. Moving on, another thing I noticed is that near the bottom of the screen there is light bleed. Minor amount, but enough to be visible by naked eye, especially during night. HDR was something I was looking forward to, but it didn't seem to do as well as I had hoped. And it did not work with the work laptop at all, which could be an issue with the old laptop that we have from work, but either ways, the results were not ideal. The bigger issue was that in HDR mode, there was some kind of flickering towards the right side of the screen. With regards to response time, Dell advertises 8 milliseconds in normal mode, and in the menu we can set it to fast mode, which brings it down to about 5 milliseconds. And that is what I seem to observe as well, which is fine for an IPS panel. It's not aimed towards gamers, and besides 60 Hz is all we get to work with anyway. So that aspect is as advertised and as expected as well. I'm not saying that you cannot play games on this monitor, it just depends on what kind of game you play or if you need higher refresh rate or not. In standard mode with HDR turned off, the picture quality overall is pretty good and is typical for what we would expect from an IPS panel. Also, remember the calibration chart. The monitor comes out of the box factory calibrated, which is useful for those who need to work with certain degree of color accuracy for publishing work or for grading, etc. I personally like the monitor a bit warmer because I am often at my computer quite late at night, and for that purpose there is a manual color temperature selector as well in the menu, so you can dial it in just the way you want it. Speaking of the menu, the layout of the menu is logical enough and easy to understand, but not easy to use. Why do I say that? Well, Dell has given us these series of buttons to press to work the menu system. For a monitor of this price bracket, this is utterly disappointing. The experience for me is rather negative because I have to switch between my personal computer to my work computer often, and to turn on a picture-in-picture from time to time. To do all this, there are lots of button pressing involved. A 4-direction controller is something that a whole lot of monitors uses because it's easy to use. Another problem on top of this is the speed with which the monitor changes display. Let's say I'm getting a call on my laptop and I want to answer it as quickly as possible. To change the source from one to the other and the screen to present an image takes what seems a long time. Now, it may appear that I'm being a bit harsh on small stuffs. Well, yes, that is true, and that is owing to the price tag of $1,500 Australian on Dell website. At $1,500, it's nearly $500 more than some of its competitors. It needed to get everything perfect to justify that much of a difference in price. There is brand value, and Dell warranty service is pretty good. When I made a warranty claim with another Dell product, they sent a tech to my address and had the problem fixed on the day, and the follow-up was on point, and this has left me properly impressed. I'm still thinking that this monitor is overpriced, and some design elements could have been better. And the bigger issue is with the light bleed and the HDR flicker. They needed to not be there at all. There was zero room for that. I have reviewed a number of Dell monitors in the past, and in those times Dell was pushing the boundary, taking us to new direction. Yes, we paid more back then too. Dell has always been a premium brand, but what we have here today is a premium badge on otherwise a regular monitor of its kind. Nothing unique over its competitors, but with a bigger price tag. Sure, when I'm filming this, it's December 2021 and price changes. If the price comes down, it will then present a different proposition. Closer to $1,000 Australian or $725 US, it is a fairer proposition. Then it's more competitive. I acknowledge the pedigree of the brand, the track record, the superb warranty support, and overall build quality, and the things that the monitor gets right. But I cannot look away from the counterpoints I raised in this video either. If you are considering this monitor, please consider both sides of the coin. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Please do share your opinion about the monitor. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, see if you like my other channel, Property Technical. It's very different but contains some good info. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, you take care of yourself.